Story 1. Making decisions every day, even when you are tired, unsure, or just want someone else to decide for once. Story 2. The feeling of loneliness. You work, go home, do chores, and sleep. Maybe 1 week out of the year do you get a vacation. Everything revolves around work and chores all day long. Story 3. The loneliness is absolutely insane. Adults feel very disconnected, but I suppose that is just part of growing up. Story 4. A lack of passion for being alive. I am 45 years old, and although I do not want to stop living, I am not very excited about being alive either. I love my family, I do my job, and I try my best to be a good person. But at the end of the day, it feels like a lot of indifference. I am not interested in pursuing anything or improving my situation in life. I am just existing until I no longer do. Story 5. Your friend's dying is going to happen, whether through tragedy, natural causes, or suicide. You will lose some people well before their expected time. It will be life-changing every time. You will come out the other side stronger. However, it is very painful in ways you cannot imagine. Loss catches up to you at times you cannot predict. Story 6. The number of decisions you have to make every single day is overwhelming. No one warned us how exhausting it is to be responsible for literally everything. Laundry does not do itself. Bills just keep coming. And why does a single light bulb cost more than my childhood allowance? Story 7. I knew about the major bills such as rent, electric, gas, and groceries, but I was not prepared for the constant cost and keeping track of other necessities like toilet paper, trash bags, air conditioning filters, detergent, and more that just keep on coming. I remember asking my dad for advice when I first moved out. He told me, "You never have as much money as you think you do. Stay out of debt and stay out of jail." Story 8. How no one tells you that a bad back is not something only older people get. It is something we can all randomly wake up with at age 26. Story 9. I didn't understand the constant anxiety of living as an adult, trying to make enough money for a mortgage, food, car, insurance, and maybe a vacation now and then. Always trying to navigate the current crisis and worrying about the next. The years go by, and then you realize death is not that far away. I am 65. When I was a kid, my biggest concern was that I thought my $2 a week allowance should be $3 so I could buy more comic books. Story 10. Paying bills with the money you earned from your work. Imagine working tirelessly all month. Then suddenly your salary is gone after paying the bills. Story 11. This is how much it costs to live on your own. Bills, loans, rent, groceries, losing at least half of my paycheck every month because of these. Story 12. Your loved one is seriously ill and hospitalized, and you have to navigate the entire situation together with no experience. This includes coordinating doctor appointment schedules, managing bills, unexpected trips to the emergency room that last through the night and into the next day, and dealing with the emotional toll. It also puts a strain on the relationship, as it becomes the central focus you share. Instead of discussing plans for the weekend or new restaurants, your daily conversations revolve around medications, ensuring all doctor appointments are scheduled, checking how they are feeling, making sure you both understand everything the doctors have explained, and discussing research you have done on treatments that might help. Story 13. Watching a loved one suffer in silence, connected to machines, and realizing there is nothing you can do but pray they open their eyes again. No one prepares you for that kind of helplessness. Story 14. All of the calls to medical professionals. I want my parents to take over again, but now they have me make their appointments because I am better at navigating those calls than they are. I am only 23 years old. Story 15. The sometimes crippling existential crisis you experience in middle age may seem acceptable as portrayed on television, where people get a divorce, buy a sports car, or regain their enthusiasm. In reality, it is quite difficult, and nothing you do makes it much better because you realize you have wasted half your life and will probably die sooner rather than later. Story 16. Being the guiding direction of your own success. Once you achieve a goal, you must find the next one quickly or stagnate. You can waste years without realizing. Story 17. There is so much paperwork. Fill this out, set up automatic payments, manage this with this app, subscriptions, applications, and accounts. Story 18. How immature adults are. As a child, I really thought adults were smart and able to handle their emotions well. Now that I am older, my entire family acts like a group of big whining babies who occasionally get physical with each other. I have seen adults behave worse than the children I used to care for in daycare. Story 19. I recently turned 60. Here are some things I learned in the last 10 to 15 years. Parents need care as they grow older. You never stop worrying about your children. You experience random pains in various parts of your body that disappear unexpectedly. Story 20. Having a variety of different doctors. As a kid, teenager, or even in my early 20s, I could write doctor's appointment on my calendar and be done with it. Now that I am in my 40s, I have many different types of doctors: obstetrician, gynecologist, primary care physician, gastroenterologist, dermatologist, orthopedist, and others. I miss the days when I just had one doctor whom I would see once a year. Story 21. How mundane and lonely life is, even with a family. You go to work. You come home late, rush to do housework and chores, then get a little sleep. You repeat this, and it never stops until you die. This is what life has become. Story 22. Advocacy. You eventually have to become your own advocate as an adult. No more adults obligated to defend you. The protection around you is weaker, and you have to start standing up for yourself. You will notice this especially in the workplace. Employers and management may target people they perceive as too nice or who avoid confrontation. I vividly remember having an intense discussion with a manager about how uneven my shifts were compared to everyone else's. I also had a conflict with the same manager when I got COVID-19. To him, it was all over. To me, placing me in close contact with a fellow employee who is a cancer survivor was negligence on his part. I won both arguments, but there was no one else to support or speak for me. You will be thrown to the wolves as an adult, and it is a hard lesson to learn. Now that I have a child, I will have to start advocating for him in the near future as well. Story 23. The Dunning-Kruger effect. I have dealt with many people who say foolish things in a tone that suggests they think I am stupid. Yesterday, I mentioned to my housemate all the grease he left on the outside of my frying pan when he washed it. He replied, "The food goes on the inside of the pan." He could not pour liquid out of a boot even if the instructions were on the heel. Story 24. The frustrating game of phone tag and digging deep to find your persuasive anger when dealing with insurance that does not want to cover your claim. Story 25. The number of times I ordered pizza after work because I was too tired to think about dinner when I first moved out is embarrassing. I had the Domino's delivery driver on standby. Story 26. Closing costs. I was prepared for a down payment. I learned about earnest money. Then I received a notice stating I needed to come up with an additional $10,000 in a month, which caused me to panic. I managed to negotiate it down and found that the earnest money could be applied toward it. In the end, I had to come up with an additional $3,000, which was still unexpected. Story 27. I know this is almost a bad joke people say in reference to anything related to adulthood, but really, actually being an adult is challenging. You are a child, then a teenager, and suddenly school finishes. Then you are expected to be working or in further education, possibly working at the same time. You have to handle rent, bills, health, and food intake, and it is now your responsibility. I struggled badly after school, tried to pretend to be on par with everyone, drank far too much, and made many mistakes personally and at work. I am lucky I had the ability to rely on family and support. I would say it was almost near my 30s when I felt like I was finally some degree of an adult. I am almost 40 and can do a lot more, but I still feel like I am a decade behind where I should be. Story 28. At some point in your life, you are going to owe about $2,000 on something, and you will be expected to handle it without preparation. Story 29. Even when you are not okay or when it feels like the world is crushing you, defeating you, and you are running on empty, you still have to show up. You still need to show up. You still have to work, smile, reply to messages, clean your room, cook for yourself, and pretend you are fine. No one tells you that survival becomes routine. Sometimes even breathing feels like a chore. It is so hard. Story 30. How quickly the trash can fills. I read somewhere that 90% of waste in a house comes from the kitchen. I need to empty it at least 4 times per week. Compared to the paper trash can in my home office, I empty it maybe twice per month. Story 31. Figuring out what one wants out of life. How to let my interests guide my decisions and understand the consequences of neglecting them. Real answer, all of them. Story 32. Everything. It was fun learning how to make a baked Alaska, how to draw buildings so they trail off into the distance, how to use a jigsaw, calculus, advanced chemistry, and the geopolitical situation in rural China in the 1500s. However, things like budgeting, estate planning, taxes, how to buy a house and car, and even basic home maintenance would have been much more useful. Story 33. Every career, no matter what it is political. When I first became a medical professional, I had no idea how much politics was involved. Story 34. Losing your only parent is the hardest and most painful experience. Suddenly, I feel like a little child looking for their mother, but she never comes. A lost puppy with no owner. Story 35. Nobody is in your corner except your family and perhaps some close friends. Find people who respect tough situations and will help you move properties. Cook a meal when you have a newborn to care for, or get you out of the house when you are depressed. Your employer does not care for you. You need to check and make sure they respect your rights. They will not pay for your extra hours and will not pay for a therapist when you burn out. Get rid of people who do not help at all when it is even a little inconvenient for them. Some people will make you walk 3 hours to save them from a 5-minute drive. Good friends will not even consider that choice. Story 36. All the big questions with no answers that satisfy and the sense of impending doom due to your life choices. Story 37. Coming from a kind of oppressive childhood, I was and still am submissive and introverted. That has led to some issues when trying to deal with people and government offices. Suddenly, you are on your own. Sure, I can ask for advice, but there is no gradual transition. It is just, here you are, an adult, and you are on your own. Story 38. No one prepares you for realizing that being traumatized and unhealed can cause others to become traumatized just by watching you struggle. It is taxing to watch someone you care about have mental breakdowns, panic attacks, or post-traumatic stress disorder episodes, especially when you know they cannot help it, and there is nothing you can do to assist them. Story 39. The bullies do not go away once you leave high school. Now they are your boss, and there is no adult to tell. Story 40. You do not magically become a smart adult just by waiting. You actually need to learn things, gain experience, and learn from your mistakes. And it all hurts. Story 41. How to use a washing machine. Before leaving home, I left clothes in the laundry basket, and somehow they magically reappeared washed and ironed in my wardrobe a few days later. I cannot even remember what I thought happened to bed sheets or how every so often they would be magically changed. I remember when I left home and had to call my mother for a phone training lesson on how to wash clothes. Story 42. Feeding myself after working is difficult. I go home and cannot find the energy to cook anything. I just collapse and sit. Story 43. How much inedible consumables actually cost you over time? Replacing soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, toilet paper, razor blades, deodorant, and similar items is very expensive, even if you are buying inexpensive products. Story 44. Most people are just surviving and living paycheck to paycheck. Making friends in adulthood is very hard. Dating is not fun. On television and in movies, as a teenager and in the early 20s, it always seemed like dating in adulthood would be more enjoyable. It is mostly disappointment and dealing with rude people or those who take themselves way too seriously. Story 45. How to end bad friendships and relationships. I genuinely cannot think of anything better than ghosting people. I do not have the energy and do not see the point of getting angry and shouting at someone you want nothing to do with. Story 46. How hard it is to make and keep new friends. How much of your day is spent preparing food for your children, not eating it, and then cleaning it up. The first problem is worsened by the second. I do not know how people make time for others outside of those they live with and family they are obligated to see. Story 47. Being a disabled adult, money is hard to come by. I don't eat much. Thankfully, My husband just finished school and started his lifelong dream career 2 weeks ago. So things should get easier soon. But I am sick of being hungry. Story 48. I never learned how to use tools for household repairs. I had to learn how to use a drill, nail gun, and even things like ratchet straps in my 20s. I never saw my parents use any tools growing up, so this is all stuff I had to learn on my own. Story 49. Maybe not a problem, but I am always confused and shocked that people born after the year 2000 are adults. I keep thinking of them as babies. Story 50. There is always a bill to be paid, so even if you think you have some spending money, you really do not because something is due. Story 51. We are all going through this experience, feeling like human beings in assisted living healthcare situations. Many small problems arise that are not resolved with respectful dignity. I spent 6 hours today ongoing trying to resolve a theft where my 90-year-old mother resides. Story 52. Paying my own way. I moved out as soon as I could and was surprised when I realized I had to buy my own jeans. Story 53. Losing my mobility due to a trapped nerve. By the time it got better, I just couldn't walk as far anymore, and it slowly put a stop to my weekly trips to have fun in the city. Now I can't even enjoy an anime convention sitting down. Story 54. Once you find yourself alone and have no idea what to do as a person, how do you push yourself to move forward while feeling that? Story 55. Not being able to find a job even when you do everything right. A 4-year degree, 2 summer internships, a 3rd senior year of high school, serving as a teaching assistant, doing work study, working as a research assistant, and countless volunteer hours. Yet I still cannot find a job and am close to facing homelessness. Story 56. That I am on my own. There are no other mature adults. I have to make all the decisions. I have to face all the challenges. Just me. I always thought there would be friends or family around, some kind of community. But no. Story 57. About the uncertainty that at some point in your life you do not know what you want, who you want to be, what you want to do, or whether it is even right. Story 58. One day you will need to start managing your parents' financial matters because they are too old or ill to handle them themselves. Story 59. I would not be able to afford to have the same life as my parents did. They had a house at my age and I could never. Story 60. No one prepared me for how lonely adulthood can feel sometimes. You are surrounded by people, busy all the time, but still feel disconnected. Making and keeping close friendships takes much more effort than I ever expected. Story 61. Finding the right people to repair, build, or maintain things can be challenging. You can generally find a good plumber, but if your sidewall has a crack and the repair will cost tens of thousands of dollars, how can you be sure the person is qualified and that the repairs will last? Story 62. No one controls, but no one helps either. You are an adult. You are on your own. There are no tips, no teachers, no instructions. If you break down, it is your responsibility. Story 63. Unemployment. I thought I would be fine if I had a good grade and a university degree and was open and flexible. But I really should have done a lot of research during my university years about finding very specific things before I had any gaps in my resume that would keep me out of work. It was a hard hole to dig out of. Story 64. The sheer number of medical decisions you have to start making as you age. Every little ache might be cancer, a heart attack, or maybe you just slept funny. So every week becomes another week of deciding whether to go to the doctor just in case or avoid losing a lot of money and time. Then you receive another notice about a person you grew up with who is your age dying of something. And suddenly it's a week of waiting rooms, pokes, and we'll keep an eye on it and see if anything happens. 15-year-old me would just say my tummy hurts, and someone would figure out if I needed a doctor. Story 65. A parent passing. It is difficult. I knew it would happen eventually, and it happens to us all. But it was quite sudden. Nothing can prepare you for the sight of your mother in a coffin. Story 66. How easily all your problems snowball more and more to the point where if you tackle one problem, there are hundreds more, and you are just expected to deal with it. Story 67. Having to decide what to eat and then cook food every day for the rest of your life, multiple times a day. Story 68. Figuring out what to eat every day while also staying active, doing laundry, doing dishes, and working at least 40 hours per week. Story 69. The excessive effort and energy required to get insurance companies to cover and continue covering the mental health medication my wife depends on is frustrating. Thank you, capitalism. Story 70. Being old. Yes, I was concerned about growing older, and now that I am older, I look and feel old. I hate it. There is no upside for me. Story 71. Make folding or hanging clothes after washing them endless. And once you finish, you have to wash more. Story 72. Spouse is suffering from a brain disease. The epidural did not work during the delivery of our child. I often see terrible people succeed. I am learning to read between the lines and improve impulse control. Story 73. Bad neighbors. I thought Squidward going insane from SpongeBob SquarePants and Patrick Star was funny as a kid. Now, I have chain smokers outside my apartment that I cannot get rid of. Story 74. Making friends has been challenging because I never went to a bar or club before. Then I moved to Japan, and now I face a double challenge of not being fluent and lacking experience talking to people. Story 75. Hormonal changes. I knew about menopause, but I really thought that the intense body changes were a teenage or puberty occurrence until I grew out of my teens and my body kept changing drastically. I thought it was a hormonal issue, but no, I am just an average woman. Story 76. After spending years trying to change my personality from my adolescence and early adulthood, I find myself reverting back to that version of myself and wanting to sit in solitude and be misunderstood rather than wanting to be accepted and everyone's friend. Story 77. Apparently, silence in your home is an ultra-luxury. It is literally unachievable if you are single and not wealthy. There is always a noisy neighbor. Story 78. Paying bills. I come from a not well-off family. In the past, I thought it was easy as long as you had work and could save at least if you had a higher salary. But I was totally wrong. Even if you work hard, all your money will go to the bills and groceries. Story 79. No one told me life was going to be this way. My job is a joke, I am broke, and my love life is dead on arrival. It is like I am always stuck in second gear. Story 80. Being a pilot is a good job. The pay is not bad, but there are exams and checks every 6 months and a medical examination once a year. Pilots are permanently tired, spend a lot of time away from family, and always have to work for someone. Story 81. Also, I would like to point out how silent grandparents can be on 95% of this. Absolute, complete, and total astonishing silence. Story 82. Depression and mental health issues affect many people. I know more individuals who have died from these conditions than from car accidents, cancer, or other causes, especially among those who are too young for elderly natural causes. Story 83. After a youth of being able to digest whatever I wanted, I now face the unpredictability of whether a food will upset my stomach in some way. Story 84. My mom and my grandpa passed away 2 months apart to the day. I had all accounts frozen and handled 2 estates and probates simultaneously. The day my grandpa died, I rushed my mom to the emergency room and found out she had cancer. 2 months later, not even 24 hours after my mom and I were told it was terminal, her heart stopped and she was intubated. I had to make the decision to take her off the ventilator. My mom and my grandpa were my entire world. They were all I had. I haven't had time to grieve. I have no income and 3 household finances to manage. No one prepared me for this. No one told me how to do this. I have to learn how to invest. I have to learn how to budget and make sense of all these bills. I have to learn probate and estate management. I have to figure out taxes. I had to find an attorney. This is all new to me and it's make or break. I can't make mistakes. It's my future, and the littlest misstep can cause me to lose a lot. It's all terrifying, and I haven't even been able to grieve. It's exhausting. I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider ending it and just saying this is too much. I thought my grandpa and mom had it all figured out. They told me they did and that I didn't have to worry. They didn't. My grandpa did for the most part, but my mom not even close. I was fed false security for most of my life. They did me as serious injustice by telling me not to worry when these things should have been talked about and managed, especially when my mom knew her cancer came back. They told us it would be terminal if it did. She was refusing to go to the doctor because she didn't want to know. She knew I'd be alone handling this, and she did nothing to make that easier because we don't have to worry about that right now. I'm not going anywhere. This is about as adult and messy as it gets. And I'm terrified and alone. Story 85. Working hard for someone else only to meet your basic needs. Wasting all your time and effort without having any holidays. Story 86. How flawed our social, political, and economic system is. That is, how accepting we all are of how miserable our lives have been made to be. Story 87. Higher education is a cesspool of narcissistic, arrogant, spoiled individuals, not a community of learning, honor, dignity, and morals. Story 88. Taking care of your elderly parent and knowing that when their death comes, along with your grief, you have a pile of paperwork and processes to deal with. Story 89. Taxes. People earn their degrees in this field. Why am I supposed to file them myself? The government knows when I submit a correct or incorrect amount, so is it all a trap? Story 90. Some people and places feel like they never left high school. Like small country towns, these people gossip and spread rumors frequently. Story 91. The sheer weight of responsibility continually increases. Knowing that one mistake or restructuring at your company could ruin everything you have worked for and accomplished. Story 92. Unemployment. Chronic illness. Developing panic disorder after leaving my abusive partner of 8 years. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Losing my brother to alcoholism. Story 93. People really only care about themselves and will leave you hanging at the best and worst times of your life. However, expect the opposite in return. Story 94. The constant challenges never end. I feel like there is always a hurdle I am trying to overcome. When one is finished, the next one begins, sometimes overlapping the first. Where is the part of adulthood where I have a nice apartment, a job I enjoy, friends to spend time with and have fun, a romantic partner, and so on? Story 95. Bullying does not stop after high school or college. Why are people over 40 years old so insecure that they have to hurt others to feel better? And by over 40 years old, I mean everyone older than 9 years old. Story 96. Loss and grief while still managing daily life, and how many people here will not be later in life? 27-year-old female, 2 friends, and 2 grandparents gone. Also, politics. Story 97. Working from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days in a row, is literally modern torture. Start a business or work in a non-corporate field. Please, children, do something other than office work. Story 98. The number of dishes you make if you enjoy cooking even a little bit. The floor is always dirty, especially with pets. Sweeping every day is very annoying. Story 99. It is so frustrating how exhausting and difficult it can be to plan and prepare dinner every night. Story 100. Although adolescence and teenage years are stressful, life often becomes more challenging and less enjoyable in adulthood. Story 101. The absolutely petty reasons people will cause you problems over. I just had a problem with a coworker who became distant with me. Our supervisors had to get involved because it was affecting our work. The issue? I was too efficient and it made them bored at work. Ironically, I just returned from a work meeting where I was told I was too inefficient and slow. Can't win. Story 102. How little money £1,000 actually is. Unexpected veterinary bill, car Ministry of Transport test does not go well, emergency dental procedure, broken washer dryer, surprise illness when you are self-employed. Come on, man. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.